rise the church. They accomplished this by the use of the greatest secrecy and with due caution against the possibility of their true projects being discovered. Most of the non-Christian secret societies did not, however, contemplate the overthrow of Christendom. They had no such grandiose idea. What they believed was that they possessed certain knowledge which was not commonly possessed by the members of the new faith, and they therefore united to protect and preserve this knowledge in order that it might not be extinguished. Thus these societies became protective of certain beliefs or certain attitudes or certain ideas, usually against what they regarded to be the inadequacies of the generally regarded interpretations and procedures. Naturally, these became the heretical sects and were gradually cast off into the darkness and into the wilderness, many of them taking up their refuge in the Near East, particularly in the rising Arabian culture. Here also secret societies arose. And these societies give us another cross-section of our problem. Most religions and abstract philosophical systems that have had broad spheres of influence found it expedient to divide within themselves, or division was more or less pressed upon them by their own members. If society has a majority of conformists who are perfectly content to follow in prevailing patterns or to worship in an orthodox manner the dominant creeds and faiths of their times, there are always others, mystics, idealists, dreamers, scholars, scientists, philosophers, to whom the prevailing explanations are not sufficient. These persons inevitably seek for greater meaning, and as this meaning approaches the mystical or seeks to substitute internal revelation for tradition, these groups may come in conflict with the prevailing faith. To meet this conflict, they retire into a measure of secrecy. This secrecy serves several ends. First, it prevents outward division in a religion. It prevents a faith from being constantly in the presence of its own heretical followers. Furthermore, it advances to a degree, and rather continuously, the moral and ethical values of a faith. And those ideals which 1,000 years ago were regarded as totally esoteric have gradually come to be new standards of orthodoxy, so that these mystical groups, pressing on beyond the prevailing doctrines, have become the pioneers of progress in nearly every order of society with which they have been associated. This, in brief, perhaps, summarizes the older situation, and it now comes to our mind to analyze the more recent trends in these matters. The first sociological over-concept that develops from all of this is that the secret society represents an organization of the factor of mystery. Anything which is secret becomes a challenge. The moment we learn that there is something folks do not want us to know, we can never rest until we find out what it is. It is the same way with a personal secret. The individual possessing it is overshadowed by the sense of his own importance. The mere fact that he knows something not commonly known gives him a membership in an exclusive aristocracy. He begins to show all the symptoms of this secret knowledge, and usually unbound by obligation, rushes forth to share it, by so doing gaining a peculiar distinction for being the person from whom this secret knowledge is derived. Thus there are many kinds of persons. In the field of scholarship, for example, there are scholars who, making a discovery, will die rather than share it with anyone else. There are others who live only in the world of scholarship in order that they may share whatever they learn or discover. Human nature being widely diversified in its temperamental peculiarities, we do learn, however, that mystery exercises an influence far beyond its own proportions. The small child standing in the presence of a dark closet has certain inevitable reactions. This dark closet is powerful. It is almost overwhelming in its potential possibility. A light is then turned on and there is nothing there. But this discovery of the nothingness of the dark closet solves nothing. The next time we are in presence of a dark closet, we go through the same experience again. We are never able to be certain, confident, or positive in our relation to the unknown. Secret societies, consequently, from the beginning, have exercised a strange and wonderful force upon tyrants. They have become, so to say, the reflectors of a man's conscience. The individual who is doing wrong, particularly the popular leader, or the autocrat, or the despot, fears desperately the possibility of the rise of private assembly within his areas. Back in the days of World War I, most of the central powers immediately outlawed secret assembly for fear that it would result in the betrayal of their own purposes. In World War II, both Germany and Italy, under Hitler and Mussolini, outlawed secret societies for fear that from them would rise the force that would later judge them and would make more rapid their overthrow. Also, of course, in all countries now behind the Iron Curtain, secret societies are forbidden, for it is always possible that from them might come the counter-revolutions which are continuously feared. If a secret society does arise within a troubled state, and it is impossible for the police or agents of that state to ferret out the society and destroy it, it then becomes a ghost, haunting forever the tyrant, and causing him to gain greater and greater fear and terror, looking with suspicion upon everyone, hardly daring to accept the closest ministrations of his own family, for fear that they are in league against him. Thus the secret society, as a political instrument, enables a dozen men united together to appear with the strength of 1,000,000. That which is unknown multiplies its power. It is suspected of far more than it possesses, and it also becomes psychologically a judge and juror over the tyrant. It may never move, but its existence in his consciousness may well destroy him. The political power of such organizations, therefore, can, under certain conditions, be extraordinary, especially where the situations permit the continuance of secrecy. In what we call our modern way of life, secrecy, as known in antiquity and during the medieval period, such secrecy is no longer possible. Secrecy today is a highly relative term, and nearly all secret societies are known. The motives for which they stand are known. Their memberships are known. That is, in those nations in which the general way of life does not cause leaders to fear such assembly, or does not give reason to assume that treason is intended, or the destruction of persons, property, or character is likely to follow. This means that in so-called highly advanced nations, nations whose ways of life are comparatively adequate and whose citizens are reasonably contented, your secret societies function mostly as fraternal and benevolent orders, existing as the extensions of old ways, but not presenting any real or major threat to any existing integration of society. Modern societies, therefore, are inclined to advance special ideas, the advancement of which will improve or adjust society, advance education, spiritualize against the prevailing materialism, and in many instances today, so-called secret societies are prime movers toward the recognition of religious value in a time when this seems to be something in strong and desperate need of defense. If, therefore, there is charitable work to be done, if there is need for the strengthening of community ties, if the preservation of a level of consciousness is advanced by society activity, such societies will spring up, preserving part of the forms of older organizations, and perhaps even more of the spirit, but relating mostly to those classical societies which had as their principal aim the general improvement of man, or the protection of arts and sciences, or the service of the needy, or the extension of education towards a higher cultural platform, with emphasis upon the need of man to advance toward the future, better equipped than he is by ordinary methods now prevailing. From such considerations, societies may be regarded as benevolent. This is the way we generally think of them today. And in America today there are many secret societies, mostly secret because of the membership's conviction that they have a project which would otherwise remain undone, and to which they contribute by means of the slender framework based upon the older concept of assembly for particular purpose within a larger social theater. We think of this and we view the term secret society today as largely so meaning. But let us not forget that our way of life is not as yet the prevailing way of life for human beings. The civilization and culture of Western Europe and America has as yet not touched a comparatively large area of humankind. If, for instance, we may say that we have 2.5 or 2 3/4 billion human beings on earth today, it is also safe to say that better than half of that vast group does not live our way of life, does not enjoy the temporal advantages which we enjoy, nor the personal security, nor the political representation, nor the religious tolerance. Therefore, it is certain that many motives which with us are no longer valid or are no longer sufficiently impressive to bring persons together in private assembly, that such motives do exist in other areas.